Good afternoon to our First in Texas teams, mentors, and volunteers. I'm Susan Ashmore, the Development Director of First in Texas, and we have a very, very special program for you today with our panelists from Dell. I know many of you have received grants and equipment from them over the years, and they are one of our key partners. And I know that you are very thankful for the support of Dell with your robotics teams. And I just want to say a special thanks to our students that submitted questions and your interest. And I think we might have overwhelmed Dell with the amount of questions that came to them. So, as we're talking about today, it's the future of work. And I want to introduce our panelists. So, our first panelist is Janine Wagner. She's thought leadership with Dell Technologies. She leads the content, publication, and activation strategy and execution, where she oversees the creation and distribution of novel stories and research around emerging technologies and their impact on our lives over the next decade. Our second panelist is Francisco Garcia. He is a part of Dell Digital and leads the AI Center of Excellence, focused on growing the adoption of AI and ML, machine learning, driven processes by enabling business units to identify, develop, and deploy models that improve their customer experience and optimize their business performance. So, Janine, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. And hello, everyone. We're super thrilled to be with you. And thank you so much for all the thoughtful and smart questions you sent us. Yes, we were a little bit overwhelmed, but we were so excited about all of them. And so we hope to answer as many as we can throughout this presentation. And if there are any questions that we haven't answered, I think we're going to capture all of them in the Q&A button in the Zoom meeting. So, if you do have any, let's put them in. And we'll see if we can answer them at the end of the call. If not, we'll do our best to answer them in some shape and form, and kind of you will get the answers. We'll organize that. But with that, let's get started to look into the future of work. And actually, before we do go into the future, we're going to go into the past for just a quick second, because I wanted to look back with you guys on, what humans have done over the past centuries. And humans have always invented machines, right? To help them do things better, to produce new things, to make things faster. And so this whole notions of humans and machines, we've always worked together for a very long, long time. And as you can see on this picture, there have really been kind of four major periods of technological change. It really changed the way we live and we work and the whole economy. There were new products, new ways of life, and so forth. And every time there was such a big shift, right? Technologies kind of converged and fundamentally changed everything. And some of your questions were really pointed at what will the jobs be like? What will be the future of work? How can we prepare? And will the machines and AI take away all of our jobs? And what will we humans do? So I wanted to show you this because, working with machines and inventing machines isn't something new, but the pace of change has accelerated, right? And also with every change, things got better. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this and really see how can we look at this man machine. Is it a competition or not? And there was a really smart man called Richard Bookstep, who was a professor and an author, and he said, well, no man is better than a machine, and no machine is better than a man with a machine. So really what we want to look at is what could be, or what could this human machine partnership look like in the future, and why might it be really good for us humans? And so Francesca and I, we're going to take you through some of the things that we believe is really cool, and why we believe in a human machine partnership here at Dell Technologies. So first off, I did want to acknowledge one of a really good question you guys sent, which was, so what are the current jobs that no longer exist or have been outsourced to machines based on the advancements in technology? And we've done some studies over the past years, and when we ask businesses which tasks they are outsourcing, they're often telling us, well, those are tasks that either involve lots and lots of data and analysis or pattern recognition, kind of like looking for the needle in the haystack of data, or frequently repeated processes or questions that the humans are just, over it with answering them. They just don't want to answer the same question over and over again. So how can we automate that? And really kind of repetitive and mundane tasks that humans don't want to do. So, what they are looking into, and righteously so based on your questions, yes, there are jobs that are currently outsourced to machines. And those are usually those routine jobs. And then the humans have time to do more complex tasks or more creative tasks, depending on what they want to do. And another question along this line from you guys were, well, will the robots and machine take away all of our jobs? And not really. We're far, far away from that ever happening. But I do want to show you some examples where I think it is really good that robots are doing the jobs and not us. Um, those are jobs that are either too dull or maybe even dangerous for us humans, and where we are already putting robots to use. So let's say, imagine you work in a factory, right? And you have to pick up like different parcels from different aisles, and you walk miles and miles and miles across this warehouse to search for them, and you have to climb up some ladders, and then you have to carry them all the way back, and then your feet hurt and your back hurts, and it's not really a fun job to do. Well, in this example here, one of our customers, they invented robots that can actually kind of move around the factory floor and can pick up those packages. And robots don't experience, fatigue, or nothing hurts. The robot arm doesn't hurt, and so forth. So they can carry multiple items at once, and that saves time really. And imagine right now, I don't know, if you have to go and find a present and you want it delivered really really quickly, well, those robots are quicker than the human beings. Another example is, I wouldn't want to go into somewhere in the desert and look for landmines or dispose bombs. So we can actually put robots into use, and a lot of militaries across the world are actually doing that. So there are dangerous jobs that previously humans had to do, where we can now put robots to use so they can do it and no humans are being harmed. And then, there are some places that we can't even be, for instance, in space. So, this is where we put robots to use to figure out, well, what is this planet made of? Can any human or any living creature actually live here? Does anyone live here? Right? So there are multiple ways where those robots can be our best colleagues, and they can do the job, while we sit back and kind of manage where the robot goes next. So those are kind of some examples of doing that. And what I just said about, the robots themselves, they don't thrive around by themselves. They're always going to be humans that will have to manage them. So a lot of the questions that we received was about job loss and fear of that, taking away and so forth. But like I said at the beginning, if you imagine, instead of competing with AI or competing with a robot, think about that partnership and becoming colleagues. So, how can you maybe service or leverage AI? So, if we go, for instance, into drones, or the US Army, for instance, deploys unmanned aircrafts, which means that the human pilot were replaced by those drones. And yes, this person lost his or her job, which is unfortunate. However, to actually operate that drone, you need 30 people, or the US Army said it needs 30 people to operate every unmanned drone, and it needs another 80 people to analyze all the data and the information that this drone is gathering. So, you know, looking and partnering with the machines and with AI and with robots can also means there is job creation and not just job loss. So it's really about this partnership and what can we make out of the technology. So this might sound good, there's also a positive side. We can create new jobs. And then some of you asked, well, what will be the jobs in the next 10 years? And this is kind of where I'm specializing in with my team, that we kind of look and we partner with futurists. Futurists are people that look into the future and kind of think about what are the trends, what would a day in 2030 look like? And so we worked with them and we asked them all the questions, and we also asked them, well, what jobs will we have in 2030, in 10 years from now? And they actually said something really interesting. They said, well, 85%, so the majority of jobs that we will need and have in 2030, they haven't even been invented yet. We don't know exactly what those jobs will be, because technology is changing so fast, and we just have to keep up and see where we go. So we thought, okay, we want to go a little bit further. And we actually asked a group of students in India what they think those future jobs could be like, and also with those futurists. So I think the chat box is enabled, right? I think. So here you see a picture of 4 people, right? Imagine they come into your virtual classroom right now. It's probably most of you do virtual school these days. So just type in the chat box, what kind of jobs do you think those people do? Just type away. Okay, pilot, doctor, military, and teacher, I suppose. Yeah, those are good guesses. Yeah, good. All right. Well, you're not far from the answers that some of the students actually gave. So let's have a look what our futurists said potential jobs in 2030 could be, right? Doesn't mean that those will be exactly the job descriptions that you and I can apply to over the next years, but those could be some jobs that, based on technology and what we need in the world, we might have. So the first one is, maybe instead of being a pilot for airplanes right now to go from A to B, this lady could be a commercial space pilot. So instead of flying across the world, she actually flies into space, and kind of brings passengers there. Who knows where we'll be in 10 years? He really looks like a doctor or some sort of surgeon. And Future said, well, he could be a memory augmentation surgeon. And when I heard that, my eyes were like really big, and I was like, what is that? So this surgeon would boost the patient's memories when they hit capacity. And so the future said, like, think of it as like upgrading the storage space of the human brain, and especially people that are sick and they cannot remember things. That might be a help for them. Now here, it could be military or a soldier. And actually, as somewhat futures says, well, one of the biggest things that we are battling with is the climate change. And we're having so many disasters, climate disasters, year after year across the whole world, and we don't know what to do. So it could be a weather modification police officer, where they use technology to make, for instance, rain stop in areas where there are floods, or also the opposite, bring rain to dry areas to avoid climate disaster and just have a much more balanced way of using the weather. And then the last one, he could be a teacher or maybe a developer. And actually, one of the key things, as we've been talking about this human machine partnership and how we get along with our machine colleagues, is he could be a chief of collaboration. So, someone who looks after this partnership between the human colleagues and the machine colleagues and making sure that we're happy, everything is running smoothly, and that we're being good teams. So, those are just some examples of, things that or jobs we might see in the future based on the technology trends and everything that's happening in the world. But we are, so many questions of you have been around not just the future of jobs, but also about AI and robots specifically. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Francisco, and he's going to take us through some more understanding and enlighten us what we can do in AI and robots. So Francisco, over to you.
Well, thank you, Janine, for the one introduction, and thank you for inviting me here. Very, very excited. So I have the pleasure of working for Dell Technologies and really spending my entire day in helping our company and some of our most important customers think about how do they apply data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning into the process. And I think this could give this audience a good feel for how the workplace is transforming. And as Janine mentioned, is like a lot of these things are happening now. I haven't seen anyone really be out of a job for AI or robots, but certainly what I want to walk you through is how these job functions will look as we go into the future. So if we go to the first slide, it's ours. Look, the reality of things and what I see from my vantage point is that artificial intelligence really presents the opportunity for companies to deliver more and to do more. And there's three high-level themes where we see companies really making an effort. Like number one is every company really wants to provide a better experience to their customer, and they want to respond to customer faster, and they want to be able to anticipate what a customer will need from them in the future. Companies also want to do more. Some companies, they want to expand globally. So they have to be very efficient, and they're really using robots and artificial intelligence algorithms to be able to expand and really serve customers where they are. And the third part of what companies are doing is they want to really deliver products and solutions that are intelligent. They want to be able that anything they're selling to their customers, they're able to predict and anticipate the customer needs right there when they engage with their products. So this is fascinating, and it's happening at a scale that's certainly impressive. So here we've got events around artificial intelligence here at Dell where we have more than 1,000 team members participate and engage. But we've also seen the same happening with companies that are similar to Dell that are our customers. If we go to our next slide, I want to give you a feel for what this means, right? So imagine that a company, instead of sending one box to their customer, they send two boxes. So they send two shipments of the same item. So obviously the customer calls back to the company and says, hey, you sent me an extra item. Can you give me a refund? So in the past, we've relied on a human to answer the call and really identify, well, should we approve a refund or not? And you can see this case is really simple. If a company sent two of a kind, obviously it's an easy decision to say, yes, we're going to approve a refund for the customer. Well, today, artificial intelligence can take some of those, what we call straight line decisions. And the impressive thing is that it's not something that takes years, months, or weeks. The new roles that we see shaping up within a day can create an algorithm and an artificial intelligence model that can be 70% accurate in just a few hours in a day of work. So imagine, like, and this can go even higher. And you know, we all interface with a lot of experiences that are much more accurate. But if within a day you can automate 70% of these kind of activities, the potential is huge to do more for our customers, and customers will have a better experience. Look, hey, resolving things with this company is super fast. So if we go to the next slide, another example is, hey, I received the product from the company, and after I took it out of the box, I really couldn't get it to work, right? So today, a customer will typically pick up the phone or send an email, and someone on the receiving end of the company will look at the customer, what the customer is experiencing, and that person will try to identify the root cause. Maybe it doesn't have batteries, and that's why it doesn't work. Well, today, this is also possible by creating these AI and machine learning algorithms that can see what the customer is communicating to the company and identify the cause automatically. Again, what is possible? So again, in a couple of hours of work, in a day's work, this activity can be more than 68% accurate, and just in a couple of hours. So imagine all those simple things. It's like, hey, the companies can be much quicker to identify, is the item plugged in? Does it have batteries, right? Is it set up the right way? All those simple things are things that are getting picked up, and that AI and algorithms today can help companies automate. If we flip to the next slide, I'll give you one last example. So imagine also that a company is trying to identify where something came from, right? And the address says 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But then we received another thing in the company, and it says 1600 Penn Ave, right? It's abbreviated. So typically in the past, you would need a human to take a look at the addresses and confirm, yes, this is actually the same address. Today, artificial intelligence can do these kind of tasks for you, and they can really understand what's being typed or what's written, and really help you match up things automatically. This is there's a lot of ready-to-go solutions, but if a couple of smart individuals sit at a table in the same fashion as the other examples, in a day's work, in a few hours, they can make something like this happen and be able to automate more than 72% of the activities in this. So what really is, I like really how Janine put it at the beginning. This is not just about a machine, but it's like man and machine working together, right? Like if the machine can take 70% of the work, that means the human can go in and do far more valuable items. So okay, so this is fantastic and very simple examples of what's possible today, but how does it work? How do the jobs look? So we'll touch on it on the next slide. So the reality of things is that in order for any company to create this kind of artificial intelligence models and algorithms, there needs to be a lot of humans involved in the back, just as Janine showed us. So if we take a look and we go forward with the animation, there's going to be three things that are going to be needed. Number one, there's going to be the idea. So someone has to have the idea and says, look, if we respond to our customers faster, like if we can give them a refund for something extra we sent, if we can do it faster, there's a lot of potential that we can go do and solve for our customers. So really you need this person that is very aware and familiar with what is possible through new technologies like artificial intelligence or robotics. The next role will be about a data scientist, someone that is very good at math, statistics, and technology. So everything that these algorithms are involved with require math. They require data to come in. They require math, statistics, and some more advanced techniques to happen. So that these models and robots can get to an answer. And the last role that is needed is you need engineers to sustain the algorithms and ensure that it continues to work accurately. So obviously, if a company, think about it, if a company has has a little AI algorithm that can work very well in the United States, obviously they want it in Europe next, and maybe in Asia, and maybe in South America as well. So that's where you really need engineers to make sure that the algorithms can grow, but can also be sustained. You cannot leave the machine by itself. You got to supervise and check that if it's still current and if it doesn't have any important biases or inclinations to go cuckoo goes out. So if we go to our next slide, this means that jobs are not going away, but they're shifting and they're evolving. So taking one of the examples that we talked about before, maybe it seemed kind of scary at the beginning, hey, we have a human, but Francisco is telling us that now we have an artificial intelligence doing that job. Well, remember that still that artificial intelligence box still needs participation of humans to have the idea, to build the math, and to sustain it. So if we go forward in the animation, you'll see that the job goes from actually having to answer the phone and try to interact with the customer to provide that refund. Now the job relies more a little bit on, okay, what ideas can we have and where do we apply it? The jobs are, how do we build it? And the jobs are, how do we make sure it remains accurate and it's responding appropriately to what the company wants to do? So certainly that's a lot of what we're going to see as we continue adopting these technologies. And it's a lot of what we saw in the early revolutions that Janine also talked about, right? Like it's jobs are changing and we are being able to do more for our customers and productivity. Going forward to the next slide, AI will require creativity, problem solving, and innovation, which is really something only humans have. So again, a human has to identify the opportunity. There's a human, a data scientist, that has to use the scientific method. And you're probably learning about this in school, like, hey, are you building an hypothesis? Are you following a process to solve a problem? You're already being taught all these skills that are going to be needed. You're going to be using math in the future, statistics, and technologies. So you're going to be able, if you're right now studying the scientific method, you're going to need to test those hypotheses and make sure that if it's true or if it's accepted or rejected. You're also going to have to build a technology so it can deliver results. So once the model is ready, you're going to have to implement it and integrate it. And also, you're going to have to check if that AI is performing accurately. So something that works today is going to be needed to be checked in the future. And all these jobs are going to be tasked with doing this over and over and over again. And not just customers are going to have a better experience, but the company is going to be able to open more opportunities. And overall, things are going to be much better for us as a whole. Now, where this will take us, if we go to the next slide, it's that these jobs will have the opportunity to make the world a better place. So when we think about it, it's like we have opportunities around ethical AI and making sure that we're removing biases from any decisions a human would like. And we want to provide opportunities for everyone on an equal basis. So this has the potential to achieve that. There's a lot of potential in, hey, how's a human going to be interacting with an AI model? It's going to enable us to go in and tackle new problems and drive human progress forward. And also it has a huge potential of helping us as humanity to solve the world's biggest problems across health, planet, poverty, safety, etc. So the reality of things is that I think it's very exciting to what we have in front of us. And really what we should be thinking about is how much more are we going to be able to do for ourselves with these new technologies and these new jobs. So with that, I'll hand it back to Janine. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Francisco, for showing us those examples and walking us through what we can do today and what the potential is. And so some of your questions also were around, well, what do I need to learn today, right, to use the technology? And so I want to reiterate a couple of things that Francesca already mentioned. So one is what we call AI fluency, which is like, as you would learn different languages and then you're fluent maybe in a different language, it's the same like being fluent in knowing what AI can and cannot do, just as the examples that we just seen, and what the humans have to do, and where they need to check, and how they're going to build and use the technology. And then also, when you think about work and a business, when does it make sense to implement that? And for instance, do some of the examples and Francisco just said. So having that understanding of the technology and what it can do and what not is really going to be critical. And what we mean with that is not everyone needs to be a data scientist, for instance, right? Not everyone needs to know all the depth of mathematics and statistics and so forth. I certainly do not. I'm not that smart. But for instance, I know how to use it in a business process and how it can help me to look at a set of data, for instance, and why I would want to look at this data. So there needs to be all of those different skills across the technology and the business where we have to come together, but we all need to know what the technology can and cannot do. And then we tap into the expertise of all the different profiles that Francesca just mentioned to make sure that we can build out the right roles and responsibilities between the humans and the machines. Now, some other things that were also mentioned are some of the really critical skills that the business leaders, the people that will hire you when you get out of school and you apply for jobs, what they are looking for. So, if we are continuing this journey where man and machine will be those partners, and as Francesco was saying, the humans can really do those more creative, more higher value tasks. And so, some of the skills that you should be thinking about as you are going into the future is, of course, keep learning all the cool things you're doing with robotics. Don't want to take any of this away. Learn your math and your statistics if you're into this, but also from kind of some of the skills to look at is creativity, and looking at complex issues, like a complex situation. There are multiple factors that you have to consider, and maybe you identify that there's a problem or there's something, there's a big question that you have to answer, right? So this is where logic and complex decision making and then your creativity, how to solve that, will come in handy. Also, of course, what we talked about, being knowledgeable about the technologies and what future technologies can and cannot do and how you can use it, but also the emotional intelligence. And that's maybe sometimes a little bit hard to understand. So sometimes you feel a certain emotion when you're working with someone, or maybe a task didn't quite work out as you would hope to do, and you're angry, and then you're shouting maybe at your siblings or maybe your friends, and you actually didn't mean it this way. So if you understand your own emotions, right, that's a great start, understanding why you're feeling the way that you're feeling and that you're acting. But emotional intelligence is also about knowing what the other person feels and having something that's called empathy. So being able to put yourself into someone else's shoes, because maybe that person had a bad day and he or she maybe is angry about something that they don't want to share with you, and they're acting a little bit strange. That doesn't mean that this person is a bad person or that the fault it's your fault, but you have to be kind and empathetic enough to give that person a chance. Maybe they're not feeling well, just being open to them and having that emotional intelligence to say, hey, they're just humans too, just like me. So this is something that machines cannot do, and it's going to be really, really important as we move along in this very big, complex world that we live in, with all of the change that's happening currently. So with that said, there's also another question that I want to read out that you guys wrote to us. How will new jobs change the way schools teach education? And then there was another one on which types of college degrees or trainings will be important for the jobs of the future. So, as we've just heard throughout the last couple of minutes, there's such a quick pace in technology and development, and there's going to be an what we call like an ongoing movement of learning new things. So really schools need to change from what to learn. So learning, something by heart and then kind of knowing what it is to how to learn. And what that means is to kind of have this curiosity, to discover new things, to ask why and how does it work, to understanding, for instance, all those new technologies and being passionate about learning about this. And so that's one of the key skills that I believe you guys should all be looking into. Sometimes it's not fun to learn at school, but what I mean with here is again like not learning for a test. It's more about keeping that curiosity and really looking forward to all the wonderful things that we can achieve with technology. So another question was, well, how will I learn with new technology? And so, imagine that you could use, here we have another example, something else like a virtual reality. Maybe some of you already have a headset at home and have played around this. And, imagine instead of looking at a map of the planets, you could actually stand in the middle of the universe and can touch the planets through that virtual simulation and virtual reality. I think that would be super cool. But that's also a technology that companies these days are actually using. So here's an example of a customer of ours. Maybe you know the car company Volkswagen. Um, and what they do when they have to build a new car, usually in the past, they would kind of use clay to model the car, like a really big car. And of course, with this clay model, you couldn't go inside, you can only do the outside. And it wasn't really productive because it was taking a long, long time, and people weren't really happy because everyone had to be in the same room. But some colleagues were living somewhere else and they couldn't join the team, and it wasn't really great for that team experience. So now what they've done is they developed a software using virtual reality. And as you can see here, there are two people that are in the office and they connect with up to 8 other people that sit somewhere else in the world, that are their colleagues in their bodies, and they are going to build a new car through virtual reality. And so they start with building it. Everyone is working on a different end of the car. They can change colors, they can test functionalities, and so forth. Everything with kind of a click of the mouse, or in this case, the cool controllers that they have in their hand. So this actually helps them to look at this car in multiple ways, to test it before they even have built it. And they have much more fun doing so, as they told us. So this is just a little bit of a quick outlook of what technology can do. And one really great question that I wanted to kind of end with was this one. Will the road to the future be a humane one? This is such a fantastic question, and you've heard us talk about this in the past minutes over and over again. It's really up to us humans. The technology doesn't wake up one morning and says, "Oh, today I'm going to decide to be really, really bad." Or really, really good. It's what the human do with the technology that decides if it's a good use or a bad use. And so it's not always easy in this complex and big world, but with the skills that we told you, with the examples and what to look out for, we believe that the technology can really be put to great, great use. And so that future that we have been talking about and the questions you've been sending us, it's really up to what we as humans make out of it, how we're going to use technology. And it's up to all of us, but it's also up to you individually. Everyone who's in here and who's listening in, we're all we can all change the world of tomorrow. So with that, thank you so much for having us. We hope that we answered most of your questions that you sent to us. Again, they were really, really great questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Susan.
So, on behalf of First in Texas, we just want to say thank you so very, very much for your time today and sharing your wisdom and your predictions of what are going to happen in the future. I know that this is so, so very, very important to our students and actually probably a lot of our alumni that are earlier in their careers. But truly, anybody who's working, this information is so critical to them. Um, again, we just want to say that what you shared today, that the students will remember what they've learned and that that's going to help them make future decisions about their career and what they want to do in the future. So thank you again very much. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Well, thank
Go
you.
ahead, Janine.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And again, like I was amazed by the questions, and I'm so excited that you guys are our future because, with all the smarts just in those few questions, like it will be pride. And yeah, good luck, everyone. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.